and you'll find out as well that it really is kind of simple. Now we think of the cloud and people say, well, how do we do business with the cloud? What's the cloud? Well, the cloud has traditionally been the internet. Anybody here not been on the internet ever? Raise your hand. Ever? Right? So you've been to the cloud. And has anybody here never, ever, ever sent an email via like a Gmail account or a Hotmail account? Anybody here never do that? No. So you've all been to the cloud. And you've all experienced then a cloud application. Because a cloud application is something that has really no defined destination, no defined point where it sits, right? When you send an email out via Gmail, where does it go? Do you care? Really, all you care is it gets to where you want it to go. You want it to get to the recipient. You don't really care whose server did that get stored on. You don't care where it sits. You just know that you brought up your system and you sent something and it got received. Well, it actually, as a cloud application, it actually went to somebody's server somewhere and then transmitted itself to the end user somewhere. Now, technically, there are a lot of reasons why that can happen, all based upon the internet and addresses and everything else. But my purpose today is not to complicate it, but to simplify it, because I think the mystery should be taken away. The cloud is not mysterious. The cloud is used every day. Every time we get on and we go to Amazon.com and order something, we're going to the cloud. And when we go to the cloud, we're actually doing something to their server to get something to happen, and they're sending something to somebody else to get somebody to deliver something to you. So you've all been there and you've all used cloud computing. We just didn't really call it cloud computing for you. We kind of made it really simple, right? And in the old days, we used to think of client-server. Actually, in the old days, before half my staff was born, right, we used to have a terminal, and there used to be a telephone line, and then there was a computer somewhere. And we used to turn the terminal on, see stuff, do stuff, and it happened in that computer somewhere. That was very easy for people to think about because it was a logical line. Well, it plugs in here, it goes out there, and it ends up at the computer. It's a lot more difficult to think about today because the logical lines are broken, right? I mean, we don't pick up a wired phone anymore. Ask anybody in this room under 25 if they have a landline. They don't even know what you're talking about, right? Because the telephone system is a cloud, right? Our mobile phones, our smartphones are all a part of a cloud. It's called the phone system. But again, we don't complicate that because we understand it. I dial it, I talk to it, you receive it, and you talk back at me. But that's a cloud application as well. Okay, so the cloud is, there's no mystery to it, and it really references the fact that there's no one place where it sits. Now, today it got a little bit more, these days it gets a little bit more interesting because the stuff we used to do with what we call the client server. What's a client server? Client server is I got an office, I got this thing called a file server, I got this thing called a computer, and I got a wire that runs to it. When I want to do my accounting, I bring up my accounting program, which is sitting on my computer, and I go talk to that server, and we can pass information back and forth. What has to happen there? Well, I have to install something on the server to make it work. I got to install something on the client to make it work. And in the traditional mode that's been evolving over the years, that's how we work on a daily basis. Well, the cloud says I don't need to be dependent upon that server in my office anymore. Basically, it says I don't even have to be dependent on my PC anymore. I might be dependent on my phone. We all have those smartphones. I got one somewhere in here. And I mean, we're capable of talking to applications, traditional applications, with those devices. So we don't need that wire anymore to connect us, is what I'm getting at. And the application doesn't sit on the device that we're typing anymore. It sits somewhere else. Do we care where it sits? The answer is really no. I mean, in a true sense of the word, if we're cloud advocates, right, and we believe that we should be cloud capable, then we don't really care where it is. We just care that we have use of it, that we can use the applications we want. So when everybody, how many people here use Word? Word, right? Where's Word sit? Traditionally, Microsoft Word sits on your computer at your desk, or at home, or on your laptop, right? So you start it, you push the icon, and you watch it warm up, and it finally gets to the screen, and then you type something, right? And then what happens? You're done typing something, you save it. Where does it save? On the laptop, the PC, or on the server. When you think about that, think of how confining that is. Suppose this device, I wanted to use Word, but I didn't want it to be on my computer or laptop. I could open a browser. We all know what a browser is, right? Internet Explorer, Safari, Firefox, Mozilla, a browser, something we go to the internet with, and I can call up Word, and I have instantaneous access to it if I'm participating in a cloud application. Because they offer Word in the cloud, they offer Excel in the cloud, they offer just about any program you can think of for office productivity in the cloud. Now what's the difference? Well, when you got Word for your computer, you paid for it, right? You bought the license, well I hope you paid for it. If not, leave your name at the end of the table because the BSA is all set. I get a reward for every one I turn in. But you bought a CD or something, you installed it, and you own that license. Well, in the cloud, you're buying the use of a license. You're buying the use of the application. So when we use Word in the cloud, we might be paying $2 per month to use it. Some cloud applications, we might be paying by the amount of information we send, or the amount of information we receive, or the amount of information we store. So the cloud has created a different environment for use. It's basically given you a place where you can pay as you go and buy what you need. Now, that's not such a bad market resource, right? Pay as you go, buy what you need. We'd all love to use our cars that way, right? Be fabulous if they said, you know, the only thing you're going to pay for this $40,000 car is every time you turn the key on. It'd be a lot cheaper to use it, wouldn't it? Because you'd be paying maybe by the mile or by the hour of engine time. So cloud applications now that sit out there are typically sold as software as a service instead of software as a license. You still have all the functionality, you still have all the use, you just don't have the physical item sitting on your computer. But then you say, well, who cares? If I can get to the internet, that's the if I can get to the internet, I can get to my application, I can get to my documents, I get the use of it, that's all I'm supposed to care about. So the birth and the growth and the buzz in cloud computing has a lot to do with the idea that you can have the use of information, you can have the use of application without buying it, paying for it as you use it. It's a pay-as-you-go method. Now, it may not seem like a lot when you're talking about a $499 application like the Office Suite. But take an accounting system or a major ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, right? Take a major system that costs $250,000. And today you have 5 users, but tomorrow you might have 50 because you're seasonal. How many licenses do you buy? 5 or 50? Well, in a client-server application, you got to buy for your peak demand, so you got to buy 50. But in a cloud application, I have 5 today, I buy 5. And then I have 50 tomorrow, I buy 50. And when the 50 are done, I go back to 5. And a lot of applications, and that's why the model is starting to take off because people are saying, well, that makes a lot of sense to me because I don't always need all those licenses. Seasonal businesses, demand-driven businesses, it's ideal. And think about it this way. We all have employees. Sometimes we have a lot. I got 20. But what happens if 5 quit? Where do those licenses go that you bought? Technically, they're not even supposed to be reassigned. So they usually fall off the shelf. And by the way, when you buy a new system, you probably got to buy a new license. So it's an inefficient model. And the cloud provides you that ability to say, well, the employee's gone, I don't need that anymore.